Why don't you give me a sign?
This is Corinna Jeymes.
The leaves are trailing along that shore. It's not your problem, it's mine.
With her brand new single, Give Me a Sign. As featured on BBC Introducing.
It's just the way it's gotta be. Give me a sign about the things that we don't know. Why don't you give me a sign?
Corinna Jeymes, Give Me a Sign. Out now.
It's not your problem, it's mine.
Open it.
Please.
Hello, I'm Sophia Jessica and welcome to the Fan Carpet. Tonight we are here at BFI London Film Festival 2021.
I feel amazing, man. I feel elated. And you know, we're in London, man. Like, I snuck into the London Film Festival so many times. I'm just a guy from Harrow Road. And so to be here with my debut film is poetic in a way that I can't even write. It's a beautiful, beautiful feeling. Maybe BBC One.
Okay.
Because them dudes were just hammering us with westerns, like just growing up, and then BBC Two, right? Just growing up, I was always watching westerns. I love cinema. I'm a cinephile, but the genre of the Old West was always just alluring to me. But you know, I've always said the scope that they showed us those stories through were really narrow. They didn't really leave way either side for any other interpretation. Women of all colours were always subservient. If you were a person of colour, you would like less than kind of human. So although I love the genre so much, it just made me want to do more with it and broaden the scope. And I love westerns so much, I just had to kind of come out first with Western. I was actually on Kilburn Lane, Mozart Estate, West London, when I first said to myself, I'm going to do a Western. And my friend said, who's going to be in it? I was like, everyone. and then that's it.
I didn't have a choice.
Okay.
There was no yes or no, or maybe it was you're doing it. Okay. James and I have known each other for a long time, and yes, there's definitely, you know, a uniqueness to a man from London, from the Harrow Road, you know what I mean? We grew up together doing stupid shit, and here we are making a Western. Definitely, I grew up watching Westerns, Bonanza, a lot of Bonanza, yeah. My dad loved that. And to have this moment to sort of bring that, almost redefine the genre in this way is definitely special. So I was on board from the day one.
For me, I am not a fan of Westerns. And it was Jeymes. You know, I met him over FaceTime, and when he just expressed his vision. He even picked up his guitar and started playing some of the music he had written already, and just the way he described the shots and how the music would play with the images. It's like Jeymes thinks in music, you know? And so I was like, well, gosh, if Westerns were like this, maybe I would like Westerns. And I was gonna have the opportunity to work with Idris again, and it's been quite some time since we've got to dance together, so that's what sold me.
Well, I guess it's a mixture of a few things. So I grew up in the Southwest in Texas, or the South, depending on how you feel about it on that day. But the Western was kind of something I did grow up with watching. You know, my grandfather used to watch it, my father, my parents. But I also kind of lived in a Western. You know, I grew up on a farm. I grew up also, you know, in the city, but I grew up around horses. I grew up around shotguns. I grew up around hot sun and all the elements. And I think when I first read the script, I thought, okay, well, I don't think we've seen this before, though I've lived it. You know, I guess I was 29 when I first read the script. I'm 32 now, so there's that. And I thought, okay, this is an opportunity. And then again, just like a little bit of Regina, a little bit of Idris, I knew Idris was attached to it, so I thought, okay, well, we got something going on here. And then I too spoke with Jeymes, and Jeymes does live and speak and articulate kind of life through a Western. You know, there's something about the danger of a Western. There's something about the feral grind of a nature of a Western. You know, you're in the nature. You're dealing with some real morality. You're dealing with some real fate. You're on the frontier and you're trying to figure it out. And I was excited to try to jump into that.
I've never been a fan of Westerns. Where I grew up, Westerns were not a thing that we watched. I had no real connection to Westerns. So when I talked to Jeymes, he's super enthusiastic, and Jay-Z called me and said, meet with Jeymes. We have to produce this movie. So talking to Jeymes and then reading the script, I saw more than just a single genre movie. This wasn't a Western to me. And I told Jeymes from the beginning, this is a love story. Even more than a revenge story, to me, this was a love story. So I started to see the past kind of what people were categorizing this as. This was a story. This is people. It just happened in that period of time. But I never viewed this, and I still don't view this movie as a Western. I don't have a real connection to that. So, but I do connect to characters and the people and story. So, and being here, this moment is amazing. I'm so happy to share this with Jeymes and the cast, because even on the first week of shooting, Jeymes would say, so at the premiere, so what is it going to be like at the premiere? And I'm like, Jeymes, we're so far away from it.
I was like, no, we ain't. No, they were the people that pretty much I had in mind for The Harder They Fall. There's things chop and change, and COVID and scripts change the characters, but this version of this movie was this cast, and I wanted Jonathan. When Jonathan Majors was cast to play Nat Love, I hadn't seen anything that he was in. Nothing. I hadn't seen anything. I didn't ask him to read for the script. In fact, he was doing a interview. You were doing an interview for White Boy Rick, and he was talking about his process and how his process was helping another actor in the movie. And he broke it down, and I saved that interview, and I showed it to Jay, to Jay-Z, to JL. I was like, that's Nat Love. That inner mind work is the reason why Jim Beckwith follows Nat Love, and Bill Pickford. I was like, it's him. It's him. I want him for Nat Love. And then the day we spoke on FaceTime, in the evening.
By the way, before the pandemic, James Sammy was already using FaceTime. So that was a new thing.
Yeah.
That was a new thing.
Yeah. I never used the regular. I never put the phone to my ear. And just for the record, we waited our whole lives to be able to look at people and talk to them. And as soon as it comes out, everyone's like, no, don't do that. And just call me. You better FaceTime me. I want to see them eyes. And in the evening, Jonathan sent me a poem about the mind of Nat Love. I went, it's this dude. He is Nat Love. It's him. And when I'm married to an idea, it haunts me until I execute it. Me and Idris go back. I was saying like the blue can of Dax. Like we go back like Jacob's cream crackers and cheese. Me and Idris go back since Doc Cotton and Nick Cotton were straight running EastEnders. Matter of fact, when I look at Idris, if Idris tells me something I don't like, I don't want to react. I just hear ish, 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 ish. Dun, 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 dun. So as far as we go, we were always talking about cooking The Harder They Fall, and You know, the whole thing's poetry beyond words. When me and JL first connected for The Harder They Fall, we met actually in London in 2002. Wow. Right, like this whole, you know, just the whole thing is serendipitous. And when I was speaking to Regina, I was just like, you know, when you got called, because it took us so long to get Regina King on the phone. I don't know what she was doing.
Working.
But it's like, I was thinking to myself, it's only a FaceTime, but we had to wait like 2.5 weeks. I remember like the day before the 2.5 week, the day before, I was like, whoa, I can't wait till tomorrow. I can speak to Regina. And then, and the FaceTime happened. And just before, I was like, okay, look, Jeymes, you got probably 30 seconds to make an impression. Because I believe you make an impression on someone the first minute you meet them, you've decided. I was like, you got like 30 seconds. What are you gonna say? She came on, well, hello. I was like, peace to the Black Queen, Regina King. What's cracking? Okay, so look, here's what I'm making. And then I picked up the guitar. It was like, her name was Regina. Right. I was like, when we put that, I was like, whew, if this don't work. but Regina turned out to be as enthused for this project as I did. And so I managed to really get the exact cast that I wanted. It was a dream cast. And
like, wow, this is a lot coming at you, and we're actually on FaceTime. But just his enthusiasm and his clarity, you know, you talk about first-time directors. There's nothing first-time director-ish about Jeymes. I've seen directors or worked with directors who have been doing this much longer than Jeymes not have the clarity that he has. He's lived, breathed every single shot before any of us, you know, came to the table, and it came through. And it was very clear that he's a collaborator. I like to be a part of projects where it's collaboration. I'm not really interested in my, me type of thing, because it's impossible to tell a story without all of the storytellers, you know? And he definitely, while he was so clear and so confident, it wasn't conceit. And wanted to take that ride with him. You know, I was like, either we're gonna go hard and go to the sky's the limit, beyond the sky, or we're gonna crash and burn together. And we didn't do the latter.
you know what I mean? We didn't crash and burn.
Very important. I mean, I think it's important to say not just Westerns. I mean, it's women, how we're depicted, especially in period pieces, you know. And the thing that's so unique about this piece is that Cuffy, Stagecoach, and Trudy are so different, but they are not, you know, their existence is not based on any man. And or a child, or, you know, a parent, or some story that has to connect them to something else other than them being who they are, you know? And to have three women that are so different, but so sure, and still have those layers, not be one-dimensional, was exciting to see. And then for a man to have been the one to, you know, write it, makes it even more special.
Good question. I mean, I think, you know, knowing that, you know, some of these characters are all, you know, real people, or were real people, you know. Rufus Buck was this really interestingly, he was very young at the height of his reign. He was probably about 20 or 19. He was a biracial man, black and Native American, and his gang, I mean, it looked like something out of Bugsy Malone. There's this little guys just like this, you know, and this is the Rufus Buck gang. And so I really, had that to look at and thought about James's reimagination of it. And it became super appealing because here I was allowed to sort of bring this character to life, you know, and place him into James's universe, right? So he's a ruthless guy, but he's also a guy that essentially is progressive in thought. You know, Rufus is about at a time where, you know, black people were being not only marginalized but moved from town to town and not allowed to stay in the major towns. This was a man that was trying to create a town and a safe space, albeit doing it ruthlessly. He had some substance to him in this film. So that was appealing, you know. Also, you know, having the opportunity to work with Regina again, and Trudy is such a formidable character. And, you know, I remember one of the first conversations Regina and I had is that, you know, it's interesting that there isn't a romantic slant to this character or this relationship. And we celebrated that as actors as we started to develop, because it just meant that we were, you know, head to head. Literally, there's a moment in the film where I put my head on her head, and that came from an improvisation, but it was also a sort of a nod to the equality of our characters and how they stand in this film. And that was really, I don't know, touching and moving and different, you know? Yeah.
The interesting part about Nat is when I read the script, we don't meet the man, Nat Love, until maybe 7 pages in. But for me, the most important part of Nat Love is what happens in those first 7 pages. Of course, it's our prelude to the film. And you see a young boy who's 10 years old who witnesses one of the most horrendous things any human being could experience, the violent death and murder of his mother and father. And so that let me know off top we've got a long way to go. Because somehow this man, I mean, I think we've all heard the phrase, you know, heal the boy, save the man. You know, heal the woman, heal the girl, save the woman. That was the mission. And then we were in the West. So the most interesting part about the process was what happened between 10 years old and 33. What happened to him? How did he become this man? Well, first off, he survived. And so how did he survive? So the trauma that he had to be healed, and he had to heal that by getting what he needed. He lost love, he lost protection, and something unfair happened to him. And so it's so interesting that you say equality, because that's kind of the driving force for Nat. I remember writing on my script, I just want to make it even. Right? This man does not rob from banks, but I will rob you if you rob from the bank. That's even. That's fair. I'm not going to kill you, right? I'll kill you in the church, but I'll give you the money. I'll let the church keep the money. That's all good. You know what I mean? Which is why when we get to the end of our story, that inner conflict is so real and so raw, because what Rufus has done, by all accounts, is fair. And now there's a reckoning, an internal reckoning. And then there's the horse ride, and then there's the guns, and then there's all those things. But all of that was fueled by that pain, that discomfort, to make it even. You've put me all the way down the hill at such a young age, and I've got to get back up top, to be whole. So that was the internal work and preparation for it.
Now you can see why I wanted him to be Nat Love. Yeah. Like I talked to him, just like, that's Nat Love. Bring him to me. Someone must know him. You know what I'm saying?
I don't categorize people like that. We're all black people, no matter where you're from. Most of us don't know where we're from, at least as Americans. So I see Regina, I see Idris, I see Jeymes. We're all from the same tribe. So my mentality isn't even to look at people like that, you know. And then there's a larger tribe, which is the human tribe, and you take that into account also. But I can't even really speak. I'm not the one to speak to that because that's not my point of view in life. I mean, that's my sister, that's my brother, and that's how we approached it every day. You know?
And then also, you know, there's COVID.
Yeah.
And man, if ever there was, when people always say like, sidebar. Remember when that COVID album was first released in the stores, like everyone was buying this COVID album. There was this narrative that black people can't catch COVID, like for a split second. Then Idris, the blackest of the blackest, came down with COVID. Idris was so black he didn't even catch COVID-19, he caught COVID-20. And the whole thing, I'm saying, like I always say, we always say racism would end if there was an alien attack. And COVID is an alien attack. It's a virus. It doesn't even want you to die. It's like War of the Worlds. It wants you to stay well so it can multiply. And this is we're living in a real life movie. If there was ever something to eradicate the human condition of differentiation and conflict because of skin color, it was this worldwide pandemic we were thrown into the midst of, and that was the biggest unifier I've ever seen. We're all actually here in masks. Like, that's the biggest everyone's trying to duck that Rona. Like, that's the biggest unifier I've ever seen.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and stories are stories, you know what I'm saying? And I think, where the consumer of stories now, the lens is so wide, the spectrum is so wide because you can get stories from anywhere. It's hard to start to categorize what kind of black story it is, It's kind of hard to categorize what story it is wherever that person's from, I think that's healthy, that's one thing. I think you're absolutely right that this pandemic has shown that we're all human, and the race thing is pretty stupid. You know what I mean? We feel stupid now, but and obviously there's systematic racism that sits in our system, which is going to take time to get out. But in terms of storytelling, it's a great day for us. I think it's a great day for everyone.
Could I say something quite, as my brother James says, slightly controversial?
Go ahead.
I think that's progress. I think that's progress, that we can all be one, right? That the pandemic puts us all as a human species in the same bucket. But when peace comes, when there's no enemy, unfortunately I'll speak from my experience, from my way of growing up, we do have a way of separating ourselves. I grew up Methodist, they're Baptist down the street, that we've labeled ourselves. I'm African American. You're light skinned, I'm dark skinned. I'm medium complected, actually. We do that. That's Rufus Buck's gang. This is Nat Love's gang. Yeah. We do separate ourselves. And I think it's through storytelling, through the progress of really looking at, seeing the separation and then trying to figure out what brings us together. And in most cases, it's a very spiritual conflict. We realize at the end, everyone's seen the movie. We know we realize at the end, right?
No spoilers.
Right? That to me is progress, and I do think that it is a malfunction of human beings that we do separate ourselves. However, it is something that we do. And what makes you more human, what allows us to move forward, is the telling of these stories, where we do have these separations, and because of this tribalism, because of this inherent separation that we do, we overcome it in the film. We overcome it through storytelling. And that's all I'll say.
Well, me and Jay's relationship goes back quite some. So we had worked on The Great Gatsby together. A few years before that, we were working on a rapper called Jay Electronica's album. So we go back. Working with Jay is just like breathing. He's really giving and generous, much like everyone here. He's really generous collaborator. But an interesting thing with Jay is he's super cine literate. So we were working a lot of times on like story and film and, that kind of stuff, as much as or more than music at times. Like he's super cine literate. I think people think the name Jay-Z and they automatically assume it was music. But it wasn't, I think all our relationships, your relationship with Jay spans over a decade, and he's a real film fan and is as knowledgeable about westerns as, say, someone else, and just film in general. I think if you look at his discography from the beginning, his first album, there was Al Pacino references. You think you big time? You gonna die big time. Here come the pain. He was always, that's Carlito's way. He was always, his music has always been like cinema. And then there's other times where you just marvel at the guy, because he doesn't use a pen. So even when we're writing we co-wrote the title track together, The Harder They Fall. And we was on the last verse. And when I'm writing, I use a pen, so I cannot remember the line I wrote literally 33 seconds ago. And he'd be looking like, and you can see his frustration building up, like, what's wrong? I'm like, what's the line before he, like, it was like, the better we fall. And he'd be looking like, what the hell's the, man? I'm like, you're the one that don't use a pen. I use the pen all my life. He just stores all of this information in his head. And like, when he's writing a verse for one of the songs that you guys will be hearing soon, his eyes closed and he's just listening to the music. You're watching this in real time, his eyes closed, and you're like, okay, I got it. And he'll give you it is verse, but peep this. Then, 2 minutes later, he'll go, it wasn't right. I'm gonna erase it. Okay, I got it. You're like, wait, that's like Hendrix. That's like Jimi Hendrix going, I got the joint. Peep this. Hey, Joe, where you going with that gun in your hand? I'm going out to shoot my old lady. I caught her messing around with another man. You're like, oh, hey, Joe. Who was Joe? Why? This is the best song I've ever heard. They go, wait, it's not right. Purple Haze on in. What the hell? Purple Haze is great. Wild Thing is great. But what happened to Hey Joe? It's a crazy thing when you're watching someone that doesn't use a pen and they're how they erase stuff and go again, and you just want to record all the time, like, so I could steal those bars. Like, okay, let me just have them then. I'm not a rapper, but I can sell them on the street. I can go back to Mozart State and sell them in the hood. Anyway, it's awesome working with Jay. It's just like breathing, really. Well, it's a really interesting thing. I'll start with the second half of your question. All the Westerns I grew up watching that made me fall in love with Westerns, I started by saying BBC One. I was watching them on TV, and I think the landscape, The Harder They Fall is a really cinematic movie for me. Huge vistas, all of these guys ride into it, like, it's just amazing. But we also have to embrace the times. And people do watch things on the small screen more than they ever have. I don't make a movie for people to watch on their phones, not even their iPads, really. But some people can't really. I think what Netflix has done has brought film and entertainment just around the world in a way that it wasn't before. Everyone can experience the same thing at the same time. Everyone here is in England, so you all know my pain. Idris, like, remember them days, man, where a movie would come out in America and we couldn't wait to see that movie. Yeah. And then they'll give you you have to type in before Google, but now Google UK release date is literally the bane of my existence. UK release date. The film is out in October, but we get it in March. Like, what the heck? Who made that stupid rule? Like, word of mouth, like, what, 6 months? 6 months? But you expect me not to find out in 6 months that Darth Vader is Luke Skywalker's dad? That verbal kin isn't Kaiser Soze? Until I find out the following weekend. UK release, damn the UK release date. And then there's Netflix. Blasts it around the world all at once. It's like you can't ask for better place. And also, you know, I don't know that another studio would have made The Harder They Fall to this level and then embraced it. Like Netflix doubled down in the pandemic when all films were getting shut down. Netflix doubled down on our movie. They doubled down like, you are definitely gonna make this movie. And they went super hard. You know, there's a particular scene in this movie, I won't spoil it for anyone that knows, but I got a call from one of the studios, and they said, look, Jeymes, what you're doing in this scene is when they go to rob a bank. What you're doing in this scene and the look of the scene was not on the script. They went, it seems, Jeymes, you know, and we're really being cool. Here's why I love Netflix. We're really being, you know, I'm cautious with my wording, Jeymes, but it seems like your appetite has grown. I was like, my brother, I promise you, my appetite hasn't grown at all. It was always huge. And I need that scene in the movie to blast up. So I think like Netflix was just the perfect home. And what made us go there, you know, I wanted originally to film in the theaters. And then JL and Jay-Z, they do this thing where I'll get a text message from Jay. Because at first I was like, theaters. And, you know, me and Idris was always talking about that. And I got a text message from Jay, like, the text message was like 6:30, because he wakes up super early, that dude. And he went, come to my house for 8:30. JL's gonna be there. That sounds like an ambush to me. I went around the house, and the seating, there's 3 seats. And JL was sitting over there, Jay was sitting there, his seat was there, and there was an empty seat, like right there. It was like, I was expecting to see, who's the presenter of The Weakest Link? What's that lady's name again? Anne Robinson. I was expecting to see Anne Robinson. I was like, okay, this looks like an ambush. This looks like I sat in that chair. Like Wesley Snipes in the Michael Jackson's Bad video. Like, so what's up? And JL and Jay looked at me and was like, you know, basically, we're going to Netflix. Huh? Netflix? And then you could probably speak to that particular ambush. But they made perfect sense, and I got to see why it was the perfect home as we were filming, then the lockdown, then the pandemic, and then just embracing like us being here now and us beaming all around the world. Like Netflix was the future. It was the perfect home.
The reason it was important for us to do it at Netflix is the goal. If we're going to tell a story like this with this cast, the goal is to have as many people around the world to have access to it. And sometimes when you do a theatrical release, there's these built-in biases, like no one wants to see an all-black cast. We want to cut through all. I know for a fact that's not true.
Yeah.
But there's still kind of, in certain territories around the world, that they will tell studios, this movie's not for us. And they're not really in tune with how the younger generation feels. So I know this movie had a shot from the beginning. So what Netflix allows is, around the world, everyone has access to it, and we will have as many people as possible seeing the movie, and that was the goal. So that's why Netflix was the right place for that.
Yeah.
And not to mention the fact they were really enthusiastic about it.
Super. I mean, you know, it's a big thing for randomly in a restaurant, like just randomly. And at the end of that conversation, and I didn't know who he was. He was like, you know, we're going to make a movie with this guy. And he knew then I had never directed. I was a debut, director. This was going to be my debut feature film. And he embraced it, and everyone in the studio embraced it. Scott Stuber, Tendo, and again, they all like embraced it and never treated me as if I was a first-time director. They really embraced the vision and embraced my voice. I wasn't stifled in any area. So, you know, it was a godsend that Netflix exists. 15 years ago, I was saying earlier, they were sending DVDs to our houses. Who knew that they'll become this behemoth of a of a studio. It's really something to marvel at. I wanted to use, and when you hear the soundtrack and you hear I span kind of all of our diaspora, like I go from Nigeria to Cape Verde to Jamaica, and it's really just all kind of African expression. And I think Fela perfectly suits the Western. Fela was a cowboy, right? He was to the Nigerian government, he was an outlaw. He lived his own path. He was super political. They killed his mom in his house. He took her to the steps of the government. Like, this man was a titan of a human being, and his music, when you listen to it, I just see I see the Old West. I needed Fela, that voice, and because that song is a song called Let's Start, and Ginger Baker's on the drums, right? His life, and he goes, the song means let's start what we have come into the room to do. And every single time I listened to it, I'd see Trudy Smith versus Stagecoach Mary, and Regina King versus Zarcy, and Regina throws away her gun and says, "Let's go." Over Fela, it's just an amazing juxtaposition in film.
Yes, I think for me and Idris and I, we tend to, mirror the same sentiment a lot of times, but I kind of think that as far as a character is concerned, if it's not rooted in heart, then I'm not interested as an audience member, and I'm reading something as an audience member first. Whether it's a comedy, a drama, whatever, if there's not heart to it, that's what keeps you there. And then as far as real people, we are all of us in this moment are the result of the circumstances that have happened in our lives. And because of that, we are all very complex. We're not black or white, we're a spectrum. And it's important to make sure that exists in the character that I'm playing, because they are real. That's really the point of storytelling, so that people can become a part of the story. Maybe they're leaving like, wow, I never saw something from that perspective. There's no way for Rufus and Trudy to just be, ruthless. There's no way for them to, for us to meet them when we do, if that's all their life was. So there's a love story there. There's the love story that Trudy shares with Stagecoach. All of it comes from the heart.
One of the hardest things about doing a Western is not doing Western acting. It's, I think there's only one moment where I really do some Western acting, is when I ride in on the horse. I had to do the eye squint. I just had to. I had to, right? But other than that, Jeymes, we encouraged each other to get deeper under the skin with these characters, I would be bold as to say that I think that my performance would be different had we not gone through the pandemic. There's something I know that changed within us and matured within me as an artist that informed Rufus Buck, and especially in terms of the compassion and in terms of the ruthlessness and what that looks like on camera. On page, he's like scary, you know what I'm saying? But we wanted to dig deeper than that and figure out who's underneath that. And I really do think that, you know, considering what happened to us in the pandemic, and yes, I am the reason that the film, well, I'm not the reason, but, you know, I was the first to say, hey guys, I got COVID, and everyone was like, stay over there. In fact, don't come out of your house for 3 months. It gave us an opportunity to really think about what we're doing here, you know. The harder they fall, you know. We were told right there that this movie is gonna stop right here. We were thinking that the world was gonna die, you know. This was a virus that, you know, so it was gonna kill us all. But we stood back up. I was thankful, healthy and well, and it really gave me a life-changing perspective. So I think I ended up injecting some of that maturity, at least, into that character. I hope so, anyway.
I'm Sophia Jessica. Thank you for watching The Fan Carpet. Please follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram for more.
Really?
I'm here on the largest of the Balearic Islands, Mallorca, with the turquoise waters of the Mediterranean Sea, beautiful mountainous landscape, the thriving city of Palma, quaint little market towns, a growing number of luxury hotels. It's no surprise that the likes of Audrey Hepburn and Elizabeth Taylor like to holiday here. So come and join me as I take you round Mallorca.
Thank you for watching The Fan Carpet. If you like this video, be sure to click that thumbs up button at the bottom of your screen. And also be sure to subscribe to the Fan Carpet YouTube channels. They're absolutely free and so much fun too. Be sure to check out the official website, thefancarpet.com. Also, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay up to date with reviews, competitions, the latest news, and so much more.